I have to be more careful about my memories. I have to be sure they're my own and not the memories of other people telling me what I felt, how I acted, what I said. If the events are wrong, the feelings I remember about them will be wrong too. I'll start inventing them. Well, that was Margaret Atwood with her absorbing, engaging, and captivating novel, which everyone is talking about. First of all, I want to say good morning, everyone. Welcome to another day of Bright Minds. In today's show, we have some surprises for you, my beautiful, beautiful audience. And yes, it is exactly what you're thinking right now. I know what you're thinking. Yes. Um, I want you to meet Margaret Atwood. Yes. It is an honor to have the opportunity, Margaret, to share with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about you? About, I don't know, how old were you when you wrote this novel? What thoughts took you to write it?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super glad to be here with you and share this beautiful world of literature. I was 33 years old when the book Surfacing was published. Um, in this book, I wrote about social debates over such issues as gender conflict, ecological catastrophe, and American cultural imperialism promise. And these thoughts or themes kind of stimulate lively conversation among readers. In this mythopoetic narrative, I tried to illustrate the contradictions rife within the human animal and invites examination of its competing physical and spiritual hungers.
Margaret, talking about that, in your books, one of the most predominant topics is feminism. Okay, this is something like more personal and maybe too early to ask, but do you consider yourself a feminist? How much do you think society would
Okay.
change if everyone believed in gender equality?
Um, I never say I am an ist, in this case, feminist of any kind, unless I know how the other person is defining it. But in general, I believe women are full human beings, and that laws should reflect this. However, men and women are not equal if equal means exactly the same. Um, or many puzzlements and indeed unhappiness come from trying to figure out what the differences really mean, or should mean, or should not mean. Last I looked, people were still trying, and yes, it has something to do with standard of living and available food supply. When times are better and women have jobs, their status goes up.
Okay, that's an interesting point of view, I must say. Sorry for asking you that so rashly, but people in social media went crazy when they knew
No, don't worry.
about you and this so unexpected guest, and they wanted to know, like your stance on all this controversial topic. Uh, we are now on streaming, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, hello, everyone.
Well, okay. Now the moment that we all were waiting for. Today we have two more guests with us. They come from the Andres Bello University. Okay. Well, dear audience, prepare yourselves because you're in front of the creators of the book trailer that you watched at the beginning of the show. Please give a big welcome to Luciano Riveros and Ruth Jofre, the winners of the film competition that we do every single year that can actually give you the opportunity to share with famous authors.
Um, Guys, I would like to say that your trailer video was amazing. You absolutely deserve this. So, congratulations. Thank you, Luciano and Ruth, for your contribution and welcome both of you.
Oh, no, thank you. I would like to thank everyone for making this possible, as well as having the opportunity to discuss about this with Margaret Atwood herself. It is a huge pleasure, and thank you again.
Hello, everyone. Uh, Thank you for the invitation, Kathy. Uh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here and meet Margaret. Nice to meet you, Margaret.
Oh, nice to meet
Well, I just want to say thank you for your words, and I think that you're going to help us a lot. Um, because we are
you.
doing an investigation based on your novel, Surfacing.
Yeah, we really love the book actually. So, and since we're doing a project, we uh, at the beginning knew that we wanted to do it based on your book. Um, Now, we would like to know more about your ideas when writing the novel. So I would like to start with, for you, what is the meaning behind the title of the book?
Um, well, that's an interesting question. Um, the meaning of the title needs to be understood within the context of the psychological realization of the narrator of her own identity. As she goes through the book, she comes to learn more and more about her own condition, and not only her condition, but but also the conditions of the past and the conditions of women in general.
Okay.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Although the novel, we never learned the name of our narrator. Well, my question
Mhm.
for you, Margaret, is why you might choose anonymity uh, for the heroine
Oh.
or your novel.
The fact that the narrator never gets a name is our first clue that she is going to be a bit hard to pin down. She seems to kind of live within her own head, not really sharing that much of what she thinks or feels with her companions on the trip. And she doesn't let what they say or do really affect her. But this is something that can really be interpreted in many ways, and that's the interesting part, right? This is just
Yes.
one part of your imagination. So I would like to hear you. What do you think about the unnamed narrator? Is that something unusual for you, or what do you think about this fact? Is it interesting for you? I would like to hear your point of view of this.
Yes, I think that that is very interesting. Uh, because that get
Okay.
makes you feel more involved and engaged with the story, and you
Yes,
can identify
definitely.
with the characters because all of us
Mhm.
can be facing the same situation as the main character. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
that makes you feel more connected with the novel, especially with the research of identity.
Mhm.
Ruth, I partially agree with you. Actually, this was something of my concern. Sorry for interrupting you, but I also read the novel, actually twice in two different moments of my life. Well, I do recognize that giving anonymity to the narrator and also leaving the locations nameless heightens the overall mysteriousness of the narrative, and as Ruth says, can be more like engaging for the audience, but I think it makes the novel like derivative. um okay, so since many Canadian authors often seem to take a bashful approach, trying to way to obscure rather than embrace where things are set, so it is very common to me. I was not really surprised. Anyways, the only reason why this isn't a bigger flaw is that the narrative dances ephemerally around everything it contains. And this in itself the novel's beauty, sorry. Just my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think definitely. Sometimes we identify with certain characters, but then again, sometimes we certainly do not.
Yes.
Now, regarding the novel, I can sense a political statement, very much Jingles like regarding Canada. So, Margaret, if the book was published now, would you say it would be more controversial?
Well, I think that definitely, as I said before, with this book, you can generate a lot of discussion about different topics between readers, and definitely this book handles themes that are quite controversial, since they are topics that we can even see currently. For instance, the fact of the need to face your past is something that we all have to cross in our lives. In the case of the narrator, she is struggling to suppress memories of an abortion,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
this is
yes.
something, even after many years since the publication of this book, is still quite controversial, as well as the political and social issues that in the end relate and involve all of us in one way or another. So this would definitely be somewhat controversial, but interesting to discuss, I would
Yeah,
say.
Mhm.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the same as Margaret. I also think that the book would create much more controversy than before because you cannot be just aggressive with a country in any circumstance. And the definitions of jingoism defines the attacks to another nations. And that is terrible.
Yeah.
um, and also because you cannot talk about like different topics, like for example, abortion, because it's a sensitive topic.
Yeah, Ruth. Okay, I see what you're saying, but I disagree with you, since I believe that nowadays we can speak about those topics like more freely. However, I do think that it depends on the country and its culture. One of these points is something that I want to talk about later on. I hope not to forget it.
Yeah.
Mental note.
Mental note, exactly.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying, indeed, I would say opinions obviously will vary from place to place, but I
Mhm.
think that being a nationalist could lead to a xenophobic sentiment as well
Oh.
that can grow easily. So I agree, but at the same time, I understand both points. And now I really would like to highlight the literary elements of the book, since
Ooh,
there were
interesting.
many. And well, one that caught my attention was how you used makeup to convey a more deep idea of the standards that are set on women. And it was not just revolving around beauty as a facade, it was something else.
In surfacing, there are many literary devices. In this case, for example, there are allusions, and they are related to Christ and colonization. Then we have imagery reflected on death, imprisonment, and animals.
Yes.
Also, we have, okay. This is something interesting, that there is a paradox, because the narrator is an artist, but still she destroys the art.
Oh, that's wonderful and very unexpected, Margaret. Well, let me know if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
But I think that is parallelism, um, in the press, in the journey of the narrator, in the press and in the past, right?
Yeah, yes, you're right. There is a parallelism. Um, Now I remember another thing. Something that it's interesting to mention is that there is a metonymy, and also there is a synecdoche. Well, in this case, it is on hunters, and they have been described as Americans.
Yeah. Well, see, I never got that, I never realized that.
Okay.
As well as the use of personification, well, I think that's more clear since the narrator has been personified through animal references, like at the end of the
Mhm.
story when she is at the island, right?
Yeah.
Now, I would like to mention something else, that everything is told from the narrator's perspective. So, in other words, everything is in uh, narrated in first person, right? So, my question
Mhm.
is, was it ever difficult, or how important was it for you to portray the narrator's point of view?
Oh, interesting.
Um, Well, as I said before, the unnamed protagonist is the central narrator of the novel. So everything gets filtered through her perspective and memories. In fact, that deep embeddedness in her mind ends up being a bit problematic in terms of our efforts as readers to piece together the story's reality, because we ultimately realize that her memories are often distorted or outright false.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that I can remember something. For example, when the narrator gazing Anna uh,
Mm.
looking around the log when it says, except for the bikini and the color of their hair, she could be me at 16, sucking of
Mhm.
the log, resentful of being away from the city and the boyfriend I provide my normality. By obtaining, I want his ring to be for any of my fingers around my neck, unashamed, like a crucifix or a military decoration.
You got a point there, Ruth. Actually, since in that moment we think we're like getting deep inside into the narrator's sullen teenage years, but later we realize that we are there are like some holes and distortions in her recall here. So it turns out that her boyfriend was actually a married man, and they used actually their rings sometimes to make getting a hotel room
Mm,
together easier. So not exactly the picture of teen normality that she had initially painted, sorry,
mm,
right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. I see. So, Margaret, okay, summarizing, we already dive deep into the structure of your narration. We also talk about imagery, paradox, mythology, the point of view of the narrator, etc. And we also talk about different controversial topics. However, I want to know how all this started to develop, uh, since when you started your career as a writer, you totally subvert the British colonial canon of the 19th century in your post-colonial and postmodern feminist novels of the 20th and 21st century, since in your novels female characters speak with an authoritative voice and also are active protagonists of your narratives.
Mhm,
Yeah. However, I must add that despite what you're saying, that female characters, the male protagonist prevails. Even in Chinua Acheve's post-colonial novel, Things Fall Apart,
Ooh, great book. Yeah.
which was written in the 20th century, so it's uh, quite recent. So in this type of literature, especially in the colonial literary canon of the previous century of the 20th, we're talking about the 19th century,
mhm,
female characters usually appeared in passive, secondary roles or characters. They were not the main character, and they didn't they were not considered important, and that's because they were oppressed by the European colonial victimizers and the patriarchal system of their country, of course. So they were colonized two times, and
Yeah.
in a way, they were double colonized according to the feminist point of view.
Yeah, this is something very interesting because this actually was impossible in colonial literature of the 19th century because it was conventionally centered on representing male heroes like the European adventurous colonizers.
Mhm.
Actually, Luciano, do you know a mirror undercore in surfacing is the novel existent as post World War II novel. In this case, the narrator recalls that she grew up in the wake of the World War II and documents its small effects on the war on her childhood. And she believes that the war serves as an outline of main inherited violence, and she tries to trace the effects of pent up violence in a
Mhm.
society that's devoid of war. And the
Mhm.
narrator says, seems that the American infiltration of Canada as a direct issue of American resistance during the post-war period. Uh, Suffering examines the ambiguous moral landscapes felt in the wake of World War II.
It is
Mhm.
actually fascinating what you are saying, Ruth. We could keep this conversation like all day. It is indeed a very deep point in her narration. But now I want to talk to Luciano in relation to the picture of the rock paintings that you and Ruth put on the video trailer. So I want to know how this somehow is connected with the main story and the 2 points mentioned in our discussion, post colonialism and cultural elements, for example.
For the narrator, the rock paintings represent clues for her to recall, chunks of her memory in order to find her father. And that's because the area where everything takes place, the story takes place, is immersed in the pre-existing indigenous culture of the location itself, the island.
Mm.
And well, on the other hand, the main character of the novel showcased a distorted identity in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And culturally speaking, she expressed some kind of alienation from society as well. A society, by the way, which was very much influenced by the United States. So, from what I could perceive, the novel really depicted Canada being invaded by Americans in the sense of controlling the country, culturally and politically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If post-colonial literature describes the process of healing, healing in and in integrating in the aftermath of colonization, surfacing may qualify. Um, it take it takes place after all in border country where cultures meet and accommodate each other in an easy peace. So the loosely formed Canadian identity constantly feels under threat, both from the insidious American culture and from the French and English cultures on which it rests.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, well, the novel also expressed the influence that Britain, France, and America has over Canada. Now, moving on to
Yeah.
another important topic, how is globalization?
Ooh.
And the definition of globalization is the interconnection between different countries and the relationship between each other. Now, talking about the novel, uh, my question is, what is the relationship between this topic considering the novel?
Ooh, I like that question. Something that I found like alluring is how the narrator perceives technology and artificial things, given the fact that we live in a globalized world. So it is very interesting how this nameless narrator sees those things as a threat and calls man made objects as a violation of nature. Besides, she also let us see a nationalist feeling through her thinking that Canada's nature offers people protection from Americans who are associated with technology and destruction. Um, I must admit that in my case, I partially agree with this thinking, since if colonizers would never arrive in those lands, we would probably never have to deal with global issues such as pollution, for example. But they did arrive, and this arrival caused the death of many Aboriginal
Yeah.
people because of European diseases.
Hmm.
So,
You got a point
mm,
there, Kathy. um, and there is something that is still happen nowadays.
yes.
But I don't know if you remember the case of the Isla Sentiment,
Oh,
the former
yes.
Iceland.
Yes, definitely.
Eh,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, um, Well, the story says that some time ago, an North American preacher wants to share the word of God with them. But due to this, the man uh, finished in a tragical ending. And,
Mm.
and there was only one of many attempts to colonize this island. And the only man that could get closest contact with them, and now he regrets. Um, because he caused the death of many Aboriginals people, and due to disease, and the story repeats again and again.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was awful,
Mm.
terrible.
yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't remember that story.
Mm.
Now, however, due to globalization as well, technology has had its rapid advancement. So, for instance, artificial intelligence, is becoming more and more accurate due to globalization. Um, but now I would like to know, for Margaret, is there a
Mhm.
link to nature? Because perhaps you bring a discussion to the table as well.
Mhm.
To what extent can mankind question or look for the unknown? And yeah, that's a question that I have. But do you think the novel can promote cross-cultural communication, touching concepts that people identify with but don't really address in the on the regular? For
Uh-huh.
instance, political issues, abortion, women's right, you know.
Yes, you're right, and not only that, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, surfacing predates the environmentalist movement, but the narrator's reverence for the Canadian wilderness is pro-environmentalist one. The narrator feels protective of nature and reacts with hostility to to the American tourists who overfish, kill for sport, and litter the ground. So, surfacing is full of tourist, urban outgrowth, and technology that directly encroach upon the unspoiled land. So, these environmental concerns still resonate today, given continuing trends toward overconsumption and the prevalence of technology that relies upon natural resources.
Sorry, Margaret. Sorry for interrupting you, but the time flies, doesn't it? Um,
Oh, yes.
Well,
sorry.
yeah,
I could be talking to you guys like all day if I wanted, but now it's
Mhm.
time to say goodbye. We don't
Oh no.
Yeah, we don't
Mm,
have much
mm.
time left because other programs and shows are coming. So, Margaret, it was a real pleasure to have you here with us. Do you have any final words to say to the audience, to these students of University Andres Bello?
hmm
What
Yes, obviously. First of all, thank you, Catherine. It was a
anything?
pleasure to be here and discuss all these interesting topics with you. It's always an honor for me. And thank you, guys, Luciano and Ruth. I hope I have been helpful in your project. Um, Again, thank you for your video. It was amazing. And also a special thanks for the audience for listening to us. If you haven't read the book yet, I hope this conversation, this discussion will convince you a little bit more to read it, and I hope you have as much as fun as we did today. So thank you and goodbye.
You must read
yeah,
this book, guys.
definitely, please. Well,
Yeah.
goodbye. I want to say
Yes.
bye as well. Thank you for having us. Of course, it was an honor to talk with the one and only Margaret Atwood. We really hope our project uh, can be as close to your views. So that's our main goal at the end.
Yes, thank you, Margaret, for sharing your knowledge and open up the possibility of knowing a little bit more about the book from your own perspective, from your own point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Thank you, and have a great day. Have a nice day.
Oh,
Thank
you
you,
too.
Ruth. Thank you to
Yeah.
all of you. And of course, thank you to my audience. Thank you so much for being here. Um, you're always loyal fans who are always supporting us in our streams. Have a good times and see you next week with another guest. Bye.
Bye.